Welcome to Mayor Brown's Tech Talks podcast. Each podcast is designed to provide insights on legal issues relating to technology transactions and keep you up to date on the latest trends in data, digital, outsourcing, and software by drawing on the perspectives of practitioners who have executed technology transactions around the world. You can subscribe to this series on all major podcasting platforms. We hope you enjoy the program.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to Tech Talks. Our topic today, achieving successful business outcomes through supply chain risk management. The supply chain for products is becoming vastly complex as more and more products involve technology components. Understanding and managing the supply chain risks associated with these interconnected solutions can have a big impact on a company's ability to successfully achieve its desired business outcomes. So today we're going to talk about managing the enterprise supply chain through contracting with manufacturers and resellers to address key risk factors for resiliency. My name is Julian Dibbell, and I'm your host. I am a senior associate in Mayor Brown's technology transactions practice. I'm joined today by Linda Rhodes, a partner in Mayor Brown's technology transactions practice, and by John Eichenberger, senior counsel, enterprise technology with Hilton, leading the legal support for Hilton's IT operations. Welcome, John. Welcome, Linda. So Linda, let me ask you to set the stage for our discussion today by just helping us understand on a basic level the importance of the supply chain in achieving successful business outcomes.
Thank you, Julian. Yes, John and I will discuss the vast complexity in supply chain today. So supply chain is much more complex than just simply buying products and services from suppliers. But I think it's helpful to step back and start by thinking about what outcomes the client actually wants to achieve. For example, if you're a hospitality company, the outcome you're trying to achieve, or in other words, your goal, is likely to provide the best possible experience for your guests. If you're an automobile manufacturer, your goal may be to provide a specific driving experience for the end user, or perhaps to provide a transportation solution meeting the needs of your target client base. If you're a healthcare company, your goal may be to enhance the quality of life for your patients. All this is really meant to say that in most cases, the purchase of products through the supply chain is not an end in itself, but rather it's a fundamental necessity to achieve the desired business outcome and thereby build brand and maintain brand quality. Most products purchased for enterprise operations and also products that are purchased as components for larger consumer products have some type of technology component to them. Just as some examples, provider could be offering remote monitoring of products, of the product performance, and or remote maintenance. Providers can also drive and update functionality remotely through technology. There is potential for enterprise-wide and or broad consumer-based data collection through connected products, which provides insights to clients on how to improve their own products and services and otherwise best meet the needs of their clients. And the ability to interconnect systems across an enterprise not only aids in the collection of data, as I just mentioned, but can ensure quality brand recognition around the globe. As you may recall from our Tech Talks podcast on 2021 trends, Brad Peterson discussed our expectation of seeing greater convergence of supply chains for goods, services, data, and technology in 2021. Many suppliers, including traditional product suppliers and manufacturers, are adding all sorts of managed services to their offering, per what Brad forecasted during that podcast, providing enhanced solutions to clients while at the same time requiring more comprehensive contracting and supply chain risk management.
Okay, so supply chain is critical for a client to achieve desired outcomes. John, in light of that, what are the implications of failures and disruptions in the supply chain?
For an enterprise such as Hilton, the failure of a supplier to timely deliver IT products, for example, in the case of a new hotel opening, does not merely mean that the products should be repaired or replaced. The implications can be broader. The ability of the hotel to actually open might be impacted. The ability to take reservations, to check in guests, to display on the TV, "Welcome to Hilton, Linda Rhodes." The ability for guests to control the TV, lights, etc. from their smartphones may be disrupted or completely unavailable. Not having those functions working on the scheduled opening date for a new hotel means the opening might be delayed, or guest confidence in the Hilton brand could be negatively impacted.
Okay, impact on brand. Yeah, that's obviously a big concern. Can you give us a little more insight into how supply chain impacts the company's brand?
Sure. First, it's important to understand that Hilton's structure differs from many large international corporations. The vast majority of Hilton branded hotels are operated under franchise agreements with Hilton, and in some cases under management agreements. And thus the hotels are not affiliates of Hilton in the traditional sense. Yet it's critical to the Hilton brand that Hilton corporate offices and Hilton branded hotels globally maintain Hilton specified brand standards, including brand standards and services, so that all guests know they will have the same high quality experience whenever and wherever they stay at a Hilton hotel. To ensure the required products and services are available worldwide, Hilton may negotiate master supply chain arrangements on behalf of the Hilton corporate offices and the hotels. And then both Hilton corporate and the hotels can purchase the brand standard products and services under those agreements.
So under the Hilton brand standards, does that mean corporate offices and hotels only buy from certain manufacturers?
Well, Hilton contracts for a wide variety of products and services from a wide variety of manufacturers and providers, and often has master contracts with competitors for competing products and services. There are clearly benefits in maintaining competitive options in many situations. Nevertheless, there are situations where it makes sense to engage with certain manufacturers to be the global provider of specified products and services. There are several advantages to this, including the leverage gained by negotiating on such a large scale and the ability to more efficiently interconnect IT systems among enterprise affiliates across the world.
Okay, Linda, in the case where clients designate a certain manufacturer's products and services as a brand standard, does that mean the client contracts directly with the manufacturer?
So that's not really a simple question. We have found that in the case of critical products and services, and where the client has the leverage to do so, there are many advantages to contracting or having relationships with both the manufacturer and client approved resellers. A lot depends on the particulars of the situation and may actually vary depending upon the industry.
Why would a business want to contract with both the manufacturer and the resellers?
There are several reasons. First, I'd like to point out that many manufacturers are structured to sell through distributors and resellers rather than directly to clients. And in some cases, manufacturers will not sell directly to a client or otherwise negotiate terms directly with that client, that end client. In the case of other manufacturers, and in the case of some clients, especially those with negotiating leverage due to their anticipated spend, manufacturers may sell directly. But notwithstanding the fact that you may be able to negotiate a contract to purchase directly from the manufacturer, it may be the case that the manufacturer does not have a presence in all the locations where the client has a presence. So you may need the relationship with both the manufacturer and the reseller. Third, resellers may offer some additional services needed by a client that makes purchasing through those resellers more efficient. Examples might include resellers that provide configuration, imaging, installation, break fix, connectivity services. So you really have to look at the particulars of the situation.
So if a client buys through a reseller, though, why have a contract with the manufacturer?
In many cases, a client just does contract with the reseller. However, where a client has the leverage, there are advantages to contracting with both the reseller and the manufacturer. First, subject to compliance with antitrust laws, and I admit I'm not an expert here, but the client can negotiate directly with the manufacturer for pricing discounts, and then the manufacturer can make those pricing discounts available to the client-approved resellers. While the manufacturer generally can offer those negotiated discounts to the resellers, the manufacturer cannot commit to the prices at which the reseller then sells to the client. So the client has to directly negotiate with the reseller for the price it'll pay the reseller for the product. Second, a large enterprise should expect its selected brand standard manufacturers to be invested in the success of the enterprise and its ability to achieve its desired results. And so it's really important that the manufacturer have a commitment to the end client. That includes a commitment for the manufacturer to help manage the client relationship, for example, or for ensuring that the products are available in all locations where the enterprise has operations. Third, it's also advantageous to the client to negotiate certain key terms with the manufacturers, such as warranties and certain indemnities and remedies. Although I know that there are many large manufacturers that offer little flexibility on these issues, it's still more flexible than trying to go through the reseller. But because manufacturers often don't have a lot of flexibility on some of those terms, the client needs to also consider other supply chain safeguards, which we're going to talk about further in this broadcast. Thus, you can see these arrangements are really complex, and the need for contracting with both the manufacturer and the reseller sometimes is really helpful.
Got it. So, John, you're an IT lawyer. What are the key risks for the IT supply chain?
Well, as we've been discussing, the overwhelming goal for the Hilton supply chain and otherwise is to achieve our business outcome, which in our case means ensuring that our guests worldwide have a high quality and consistent experience in all their interactions with Hilton, from the point of deciding where to stay, through reservations, hotel stays, and thereafter, and through that, build guest loyalty such that guests will choose to stay at Hilton on their next trip. For purposes of this podcast, I think we can focus on three key risks we need to manage to achieve our goal. The products and services we use to provide our hospitality services need to be available on time, when needed, and for the negotiated pricing. Secondly, the products and services need to provide high quality and consistent functionality. And third, but not third in importance, the privacy of our guests is essential.
Okay. Well, why don't we take those risks one by one? Why don't you start by describing the steps you might take to mitigate the first risk? The products and services need to be available when needed and for the negotiated pricing.
Sure. We negotiate contract terms to incent manufacturers and resellers to meet timeliness requirements. This could include establishing service levels and service level credits around timeliness. Hilton has some unique complexities in this regard. We look to build service levels and credits to manage the global relationship and protect the Hilton brand, but we also seek to have service level protections for the impacted properties where appropriate. Of course, as you likely know, service level credits will never actually cover the harm to Hilton should a hotel's operations be unavailable due to supply chain delays and unavailability of products and services needed to serve our guests. So liability and indemnity provisions in contracts are critical items. However, liability terms and indemnities will also have their own limitations. Of particular note, it's common in contracts between sophisticated parties for consequential damages to be excluded. If, due to supply chain delays, one of our new hotels is delayed in opening, much of the harm Hilton will suffer will be consequential damages such as reputational harm. It is unlikely there will be exceptions to the exclusion of consequential damages in the typical delay scenario. In other words, exceptions to the exclusion of consequential damages typically focus on egregious conduct by the provider, such as gross negligence or willful misconduct, which will likely not be the case for a delayed delivery. Thus, we implement other safeguards in our contract to mitigate the risk of supply chain delays. We require that our manufacturers and resellers commit to lead times, not only for delivery, but other pre-delivery services that might be performed by the manufacturer, such as configuration or imaging services. This helps us in planning generally to ensure on-time delivery in the typical case based on our forecasted needs, while at the same time managing the costs associated with holding excess inventory. We may also require resellers to maintain an inventory of our standard products in an amount Hilton determines reasonable to protect against supply chain delays, especially where unforeseen circumstances cause a delay. Alternatively, Hilton may maintain its own level of inventory for the same purpose. Obviously, there can be a cost to maintaining inventories, so we carefully analyze what inventory levels are optimal based upon data collected and risk tolerance for supply chain delays.
Julian, I might also add that another means some clients use for minimizing the risk of supply chain disruption is planning for the location from which products and services are sourced. For example, it might seem that in some cases, the lowest cost for a U.S. company to source products is from, say, China. However, if the risks of supply chain delay are greater for critical products sourced from China, it may be actually more cost effective in the long run to source those products from a closer location, such as a country in North America.
Okay, and John, what about pricing?
Well, as we talked about earlier, Hilton negotiates with the manufacturer for pricing discounts the manufacturers will provide to Hilton approved resellers, and then negotiates the price Hilton actually pays for products and services with the resellers themselves. Resellers will typically argue that they cannot control the pricing offered by the manufacturer, which is true. Nevertheless, the reseller, for the most part, interfaces with the manufacturer, so the reseller can play an important role in monitoring the manufacturer's adherence to its pricing and other commitments.
Okay. Linda, what about the second risk that John brought up, quality? How do you contract to mitigate the risks around quality issues?
I think it's helpful to circle back for a minute to where we started. Most of the products we are talking about for enterprise operations have a technology component to them. The technology could be built into the product to make it function, and/or the product could be interconnected with managed services, technology solutions, or other technology products and services. Even what seems to be a relatively mundane product could be turned into a cloud solution. As an example, I have a couple of different clients who are negotiating contracts with what I call traditional product manufacturers, i.e. manufacturers of printers. In both cases, these traditional product manufacturers provide print management services that involve a cloud component to them, which again raises further issues in particular with respect to quality as well as other issues. Thus, in our master agreements, we consider warranties, remedies, and service levels that apply to both products and services. When you have something like a solution that has a cloud component to it or involves some kind of professional or managed services, you want to include work standards warranties, which are important to ensure the services are performed with due professional care by qualified personnel and adhering to leading industry standards. Then you also want to include your product warranties. They're important to protect against the product defects in the actual physical, hardware and the like. Functionality warranties can span across the products and technologies and become essential so that the solution the client buys meets its expectations. A quick additional thought on remedies. Manufacturers love to say that repair, replacement, or refund is the sole and exclusive remedy for product defects. That just doesn't work. As discussed throughout this podcast, the consequence of product failures, whether supply chain delays, quality issues, or the like, can be extensive. The message to manufacturers and resellers is that the client is not merely buying products. Rather, the client is buying a global solution to achieve its desired business outcomes, and the remedies need to reflect that.
Okay, John, let's touch on the third risk you identified, guest privacy. Why is that so important, and how do you mitigate that risk?
Hilton cares deeply about the privacy of guest personal data, as well as the privacy of the personal data of its employees and others. I'll focus on guest privacy in particular, because ensuring a Hilton quality experience for our guests is at the core of our business, and few incidents can so quickly and profoundly hurt a business as the unintended disclosure of personal data. There are many benefits to having access to the data of our guests. We have the capability to truly create a unique, customized experience for each guest, enhancing the quality of our services and guests' loyalty. Yet we take very seriously our obligation to maintain the confidentiality and integrity of the data. Some solutions in the marketplace available for purchase could expand potential access to guest data. Whenever we look at new IT solutions, we investigate their security and safety before we make a purchase decision. We also have a strong data privacy policy for suppliers that we strictly enforce, and audit rights to ensure compliance.
Linda, anything else that should be done to protect personal data?
Of course, we could spend the entire podcast, and in fact, we have several Tech Talk podcasts devoted to data privacy and security. So we obviously, on this podcast, can't go into all those details. Nevertheless, I think it is important to emphasize adherence to the data privacy fundamentals. First, understand the nature of the data that the providers will access, where and how data will be processed and stored, basically map out the data flow. In these complex technology-related supply chain solutions, data can be in the hands of each of the manufacturer and the supplier. The data could be stored in a cloud environment that is part of the product solution. The cloud environment could be hosted by a third-party provider. So the third party's data protocols and adherence to standards becomes critical. The contract needs to address compliance with data privacy laws and client standards, audit rights, as John mentioned, including controls audits and client audit rights to monitor adherence to data privacy requirements and remedies. These issues discussed on further on podcasts are highly relevant here. And I'd also like to re-emphasize our basic theme, plan based upon a risk-based model. Consider the business outcomes you are trying to achieve, the criticality of the products and services you are acquiring through the supply chain to achieve those outcomes, the likelihood of supply chain disruptions, the costs associated with protecting against those disruptions. Gather and analyze the associated data and then put in place the contractual and other protections to mitigate the chance of supply chain disruptions in light of the business risks.
Well, thank you, Linda. And thank you, John, for all of your insights today. Listeners, if you have any questions about today's episode or about anything else related to technology, transactions, and the law, please email us at techtransactions@mayorbrown.com. Any ideas for future episodes are also always welcome. Thank you for listening.
We hope you enjoyed this program. You can subscribe on all major podcasting platforms. To learn about other Mayor Brown audio programming, visit mayorbrown.com/podcasts. Thanks for listening.